Let's tackle one of the biggest questions you can possibly ask. Is the world around you actually made of things? Or is reality something, well, something a lot weirder? Today we're going to explore a completely different way of looking at the very fabric of existence.
Yeah, I know, that sounds nuts, but just stick with me here. That solid chair you're in, the screen you're looking at, even you, by the end of this, you might start to wonder if any of these are real, separate objects, or if they're just patterns in something much, much bigger.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with the huge question that kind of splits reality in two. Then we'll check out the common sense idea, a world full of objects, and see why that idea hits a wall. After that, we'll explore the wild alternative, a world of distinctions. And finally, we'll get into what this all means for the future of, well, everything.
All right, so where do you even start with a question this huge? Before you can even talk about atoms or galaxies or anything else, you have to begin with the most basic thing our minds can do.
It all boils down to this, making a distinction. It's a super simple idea. You can tell that your cup is not the table it's on. You know that you are not the air around you. This simple act of seeing one thing as separate from another, that's the rock-bottom foundation for how we make sense of the world.
And this right here is the fork in the road. This is the whole enchilada. When you see that cup and that table, are you seeing two things that are genuinely separate, existing all on their own? Or are you just drawing a line in your own mind on something that's actually one big connected whole?
So this gives us two completely different paths for reality. Case 1 says reality is like a giant box of Legos. It's fundamentally built out of separate little pieces. But case 2, that's more like a single massive block of clay. It's one whole thing, but it allows us to see or make shapes within it. That tiny difference in wording, has objects versus allows for distinctions, trust me, it changes absolutely everything.
So let's start by walking down that first path because, it's the one that feels right. It's our everyday, common sense view of how things work.
I mean, it just seems obvious, right? You look around, the world is full of stuff. There's a car, there's a tree, there's another person. They're all separate things. And this idea has been the engine of science for centuries. We've been on this massive hunt for the ultimate building blocks, digging past atoms to protons and electrons, then to quarks, always assuming that if we just dig deep enough, we'll find the tiniest little thing that everything else is made of.
But here's where it gets really weird. Because when we actually put this idea to the test, when we push this world of objects thing to its absolute limits with physics, the whole idea just kind of falls apart.
Up here at our human scale, things are easy. A rock is a rock. It has a shape, it has a weight, you know where it is, it's stable, it's predictable. Simple. But what happens when we start to zoom in? Like really, really zoom in? What is that rock actually made of? This is exactly where our common sense ideas start to fail, spectacularly. As you dive down to the world of atoms and particles, the whole idea of a solid, stable object just gets fuzzy. A particle might not have a definite location. It can act totally different just because you're looking at it. All the normal, predictable rules we count on up here they don't apply down there.
And if you go even deeper, the so-called objects basically dissolve into nothing. An atom isn't a solid little ball, it's almost entirely empty space. And the little bits inside it are made of other bits, which are made of even smaller bits. It's like opening a set of Russian dolls, but you never actually find the final solid doll in the middle.
So here's the punchline, and it's a quote straight from the source material. It turns out that following the idea that reality is made of objects leads you to the conclusion that those objects don't really exist in a fundamental way. They're just illusions of scale. A chair is only a chair at our level. Down at the atomic level, it's just a buzzing cloud of particles. So, path 1, it leads to a dead end.
Okay, so if the world isn't made of objects, then what's the alternative? Well, that means we have to go back to that fork in the road and head down the second path, the much more radical path.
Let's really wrap our heads around this again. What if reality isn't a collection of parts at all? What if it's just one single, unbroken whole? A whole that simply has the potential for us to see patterns and distinctions within it. The universe isn't a machine made of separate gears. It's more like a single river where we can point to all the different eddies and currents.
Now, this view completely flips the script. It means, first of all, there are no building blocks. Forget about them. Reality is one. Second, it means that what we call objects, like that chair, are really just distinctions that we, the observers, are making. And third, and this is the part that will really bake your noodle, some of those distinctions, like you and me, get so complex that we can make other distinctions. We are literally patterns in the whole that have become aware enough to see other patterns.
Okay, so if we accept this second path, if reality is one big whole that just allows for distinctions, it changes absolutely everything. It hands science and philosophy a completely new set of marching orders.
Suddenly, science has this fascinating, brand new to-do list. First up, completely rethink what an experiment even is. Because if it's all one whole, then the scientist is never really separate from what they're studying. Second, try to solve the biggest mystery there is. How are distinctions even possible? Why isn't the universe just a uniform, featureless blob? And third, we've got to build a whole new model of reality from the ground up, one that's based on this idea of distinctions, not objects.
And until we start to tackle those huge questions, we won't even have the right language to describe what reality is. Think about it. All of our current math is designed to describe how separate things interact with each other. But if there are no separate things, we're going to need a whole new kind of math.
Which leaves us with this one, final, mind-bending question. If the world isn't actually made of things, then what are we? What is a thought? What is this conversation right now? This isn't just some abstract physics problem. It's a question that goes right to the core of who and what we are in this vast, interconnected, and deeply mysterious whole we call reality.